had one of the most legendary guitar tones in music history. Well, in today's Squealing Pig Guitars video, I'm going to try and get close to the Blizzard of Oz tone with the current gear that I own. No Marshalls, no rare pedals, and no vintage guitars. So sit back and relax, grab yourself some popcorn, and let's see how close I can get to the tone of Randy Rhoads. So before we get to shredding, let's talk about what gear Randy Rhoads used on Blizzard of Oz. The Blizzard of Oz album was recorded in 1980, and for me anyway, it's my favourite Ozzy Osbourne album, featuring iconic songs like Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley. And of course the whole album is characterised by that legendary guitar tone of Randy Rhoads. He used a 1974 Gibson Les Paul Custom in Alpine White. Of course, in this day and age, that'll be a vintage guitar, but at the time, this was a guitar that was only 6 years old. I believe they came fitted with the T-top humbuckers. They have a relatively low output in comparison to modern high-gain pickups. Then for the amplifier, he used a mighty 100-watt Marshall. It was a 1959 Super Lead that had received a few modifications. And of course, to push that Marshall amplifier, Randy Rhoads used an MXR Distortion Plus. He's also been known to use a 10-band EQ and a chorus pedal, but a lot of guitar historians actually speculate that he didn't use these pedals in the studio. He only used the MXR Distortion Plus, and he used the EQ and the chorus as more of a live tool. So this album was recorded in 1980 in Ridge Farm Studios in Surrey, here in the UK. His aggressive tone was captured in a stone room setup. This was so he could get more volume and acoustic resonance to his tone. The one feature that characterizes the Randy Rhoads tone regardless of your gear is double tracking. So we'll be talking about that a little bit later on in today's episode. But they are the key features of the Randy Rhoads tone. So let's head into the studio and see what gear I have to my disposal. Will I get close? We'll have to find out. So the guitar I'm going to be using for this tonal Randy Rhoads adventure is this beautiful Gibson Custom Shop Les Paul Custom in Murphy Age Silverburst. You might be asking me, Ben, why didn't you use an Alpine White one? Obviously that's what Randy Rhoads is known for. Well, unfortunately we don't actually have one at the shop at the moment, and also the whole premise of this episode is to try and use gear that isn't signature or the exact same as what the artist used. Just like how we did in the Slash video, we've got a guitar that's kind of in the style of Randy Rhoads, and obviously an amplifier that is nothing like the one that Randy Rhoads used. As I mentioned previously, Randy Rhoads used a 1959 Marshall JMP, so it'd be something similar to this Friedman that I've got to my right here, which is like a Plexi style amplifier, or even the Silver Jubilee or this DSL, you probably get something closer. But the whole point of this is to have a little bit of fun and determine whether you guys can sound like Randy Rhoads at home. The two tracks I'm going to be focusing on are Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley. The main thing that characterizes Randy Rhoads' tone is his articulation, how he picks the string, but also the double tracking method that he used. That is one of the crucial points of the Randy Rhoads tone. We are going to try and simulate it with a chorus pedal, but we'll compare it with a double tracked example as well so you can hear the difference. So let's dial in this tone. So I'm plugged into the Mesa Boogie Mark V amplifier going into a 212 cabinet. I'm using channel 3 at the moment on the Mark II C Plus setting. It's a little bit smoother than the rest of them on the third channel. This is the heaviest gain channel, but usually I would boost it with a distortion pedal, which we will do later on. But at the moment, this is just going straight into the amp. So we're obviously quite a long way off. We need a lot more gain. We need to pronounce the mid-range and bring a little bit more presence in and take away some of that bass end. But first, I'm going to dial in my overdrive pedal to get that kind of MXR Distortion Plus type tone. I'm going to use the mid-range setting on the Spark and boost the treble frequency. So this is what it sounds like without the Spark. Let's put the Spark on. And straight off the bat, that's what I'd recommend to you guys at home, is always use a moderate amount of distortion on the amplifier and then push it into that really saturated sound with an overdrive pedal. If you think about it, he'd have used a Marshall amplifier that didn't have a lot of gain in. He would have maybe used a Variac like EVH did. Get a lot of tube distortion going, but it still would be a fairly clean tone. Then just boost it a little bit with a mid-range booster or some sort of overdrive. But remember, too much gain is going to create flubbiness. We want it to be razor sharp, this tone. And if you listen to the isolated takes, it is a fairly clean tone, and that spatial kind of sound comes from the double tracking or the chorus effects that he used. To my ear anyway, I feel like we need a lot less bass. The Mark V is renowned for being a very bassy amplifier. I'm going to bring up the mid-range to about around 6 6. I'm going to keep the master pretty high, and I'm just going to increase the presence at the moment, because I don't necessarily want more high-end frequency like a treble would add. I just want a little bit more air to the tone. So let's hear it. That's probably a little bit too bright, so I'm going to bring the treble down. I'm going to kind of stick by my guns and keep the presence up. So we're still quite far away. It's quite a quacky tone so far. So I've just engaged the EQ now. You can see the sliders now on the B camera. This is probably one of the coolest features of the Mark V, is because you can actually dial in a lot of different tones. We saw on the Slash episode how close you can get to his tone with this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the 240 down a little bit. I'm going to keep the 750 kind of in the middle, because that's your kind of bluesy mid-range. So let's see what that sounds like. And all of a sudden, we're getting closer to that Randy. What I love about the Mark V is that it has an active EQ, so it's actually adding or subtracting frequencies. It's not just taking away like a normal passive EQ would. So I actually think that sounds pretty close. We do need to do a little bit more dialing just to get a little bit of that kind of quackiness out. That 750 definitely needs to be in the middle, and this is actually quite a good lesson for tone hunting in general. Mid-range, to my ear anyway, creates the biggest difference in tone. So if I bring all that 750 out, we've got a bit of a Metallica S-tone. But if we bring it up, you're getting quite bluesy. And for the Randy tone, I think we need to be in the middle there and maybe bring back a little bit more presence. I think we might just be there. Now, to make the tone sound more expansive and like it would do on the record, I'm going to add a little bit more reverb, a little bit of delay, and I'm also going to add the Astra from UA, and I'm going to try and dial in a decent chorus tone. So let's add them pedals now and see what it sounds like. So that is my Randy Rhoads tone. I'm not saying it's perfect, it's somewhere in the ballpark. Obviously, if you have a Marshall JMP, you've got the EQ pedals and the MXR distortion, you're gonna get a lot closer. But I do believe you can get close with any sort of Les Paul guitar with a decent set of pickups in. So let's see what it sounds like in the mix. Just before we move on to Mr. Crowley, I just wanted to mention about double tracking. This is something that is very important with the Randy Rhoads tone. This is something obviously a lot of guitar players around that time adopt and still do to this day. It creates a more spatial sound and it makes the guitar solo sound bigger. So if you're making YouTube videos or Instagram videos, I'd really recommend double tracking for your videos, as it gets a lot closer to the Randy Rhoads tone. For Mr. Crowley, I'm going to use the exact same tone. The only thing I'm going to do is increase the gain just a little bit, just because the solo is a lot quicker and demands a little bit more sustain. So let's hear what the solo would sound like. So there's my Mr. Crowley tone. I have to say it's been a loud one today. I've really had to turn up this amplifier loud to get the smoothness and that kind of air to the tone that Randy Rhoads got in the studio. But yeah, I think that's the closest I'm gonna get with this rig. So now let's hear Mr. Crowley in the mix. So we've done Crazy Train, we've done Mr. Crowley, and I hope you've enjoyed both of my takes on them solos. Let me know what you think down below. And for the third song, I thought I'd go a little bit more unorthodox and showcase a side of Randy Rhoads playing he doesn't get enough credit for, in my opinion. He was an incredible classical guitar player, and I thought I'd do my own version of D, which is also on the Blizzard of Oz album. In the studio, he used a steel string Martin, and he also double tracked it with a nylon string guitar. For me personally, I much prefer playing steel string, so I'm going to use that for today, and I won't be double tracking this as I'm just going to be doing it free time, and to be honest, I'll be here all day if I have to double track it, as that'll be too hard. I learned it earlier today. I think it's a really lovely piece. Obviously, in terms of the tone, I'm just using this Martin and my fingers. Of course, I'll have a condenser microphone in front of the acoustic, and I'll mix that in with a little bit of the room mic. So let's hear D now and see if I can get close.
This is D.
So guitarists, it's the end of another Squealing Pig Guitars video. I really hope you've enjoyed this one today. If you have, make sure to leave a thumbs up on this video, hit the height points button, and leave your brutally honest thoughts down below. How close do you think I got to Randy Rhoads' legendary tone? Let me know down below. And finally, if you're new to Squealing Pig Guitars and like our content, make sure to hit that big red subscribe button. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, and we could definitely do with your help. So at the end of the video today, I'm actually really happy with how the tones came out. I think I got pretty close to the Crazy Train solo. I think the solo in particular was quite close. Maybe the rhythm tracks could have been altered a little bit, but I thought that silver burst sounded incredible going into the Mesa Boogie. This goes to show that you don't necessarily need the signature gear or the vintage gear that artists may use. For the Randy Rhoads tone, just as long as you have a guitar with a humbucker in it and a decent amount of gain in your amplifier and maybe have an EQ pedal if you don't have a Mesa Boogie Mark V, you're going to get fairly close. Also, a big feature of the Randy Rhoads tone is that double tracking element, as you saw earlier in the episode. Even though this video wasn't solely about the Gibson Les Paul Silverburst, I am going to give it a top trumps rating at the end of today's episode. So for aesthetics, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. You can't go wrong with a Murphy Lab aged Silverburst. For playability and tone, I'm going to give it a 9. It played really well in today's episode. For collectability, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. These guitars can be collectible, but if this was a vintage Silverburst from the 70s, this would be a really collectible guitar, but because it's a reissue, it's not as collectible. And finally, for value, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Yes, these guitars are expensive, going around that £5,000 mark, but at the end of the day, you're getting a beautiful Les Paul Custom, and the guitar itself sounds incredible, and it did the job that I needed it to do today. So the final score for the Gibson Les Paul Custom Silverburst is, if you'd like to see more tone hunting videos on the channel, make sure to leave some suggestions down below, whether that's bands, artists, guitar players. I really enjoy making these videos, and if you guys enjoy them, I'll keep them coming. So comment your thoughts down below and comment your artists down below as well. But thank you so much for watching today's video. My name is Ben Keightley, and I'll see you shortly for another episode. But until then, keep rocking, guys. I'll see you soon.